Recording in
I want to welcome everybody to the January 18th, 2024 Subdivision Utility Advisory Meeting. Could I have the opening announcements, please?
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available on the counter in the lobby. The Planning Commission's bylaws limit the applicant of a subdivision application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the Commission may extend these times by a majority vote. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone.
Thank you. Let's have roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Bill Johnson.
Present.
Mike Green.
Here.
Bob Duell.
Here.
Ian Fox. Here. Josh Blick is absent.
I think he's just holding the parking lot.
All right, so we've got Mr. Blick in the parking lot. Bob Aldrich.
I'm parked.
Parked in the room. All right. And Mr. Williams Bay, John Williams Bay.
Here.
All right, I show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members present and 1 in the parking lot.
Fantastic. Before we start, item number 5, subdivision 2023 00062 has been deferred for 2 weeks. So if there's anybody here, we will not hear that case today. So the case we will hear will be item number 2, subdivision 2023 00042.
Morning, Greg Sharon, planning staff. This is the final plat approval for the Pegasus addition. This is a 149 lot residential subdivision. The preliminary plat was approved on October 19th, 2023. Next screen, please. There it is in the yellow. Next screen. And next screen. This is the overall final plat. There was a zone change, 2023-38 was approved to MF18 multifamily and TF3 two-family for this site. Item A, Public Works, City Wichita Public Works requires water and sewer to be extended to all blocks. Utility plan is requested with plan depths for the final plat. And this plat is located within rural district number 3. And the applicant, if the applicant needs city water, then the applicant needs to provide a right to serve from the rural water district. Item C, county stormwater has approved the drainage plan. Item D, traffic engineering advises traffic calming elements required along Airman, Flightman, and Zulu streets, and advises that on Pawnee, a EB auxiliary lane is required for right turns onto Gobble, and SB auxiliary lane is required for left turns on both Creed and Crosswind. Item J, standard city fire comment regarding hydrants, and city fire requires for development of 1 or 2 families where the number of dwelling exceeds 30 shall provide 2 separate and approved fire access roads. When the city fire requires 2 fire access roads, they should be placed a distance apart following D107.2. Since both Airman Circle and Flightman Circle are over 500 feet, International Fire Code Table D103 requires 20-foot access road. And the plat denotes 2 fire access roads within reserves Q and R abutting the east property line. The plat notes indicate the gate and lock will be approved by the City of Wichita Fire Code official, and the HOA shall provide all members with an access code to open gate. The subdivision committee approved the preliminary plat with a full right of way in lieu of reserves extending to the east of Carson and Crosswind Street. Item K, approval will require lots depth waiver of lots 25, 26, block 2, and lots 5, 6, and 7, block 5. And item A, Wichita Master Bike Plan notes bike pedestrian path within the northwest portion of the property, and a public access easement has been listed as a permitted and reserve C and D for the proposed bicycle and shared use path. Item K, standard city health comment regarding irrigation wells. Item A, Evergy will not. Item AA, Evergy will not to request additional easements on the final plat. Item C, the applicant has platted 5-foot setbacks for all the lots, which represent an adjustment of the zoning code standard of 6 feet for TF3 two-family. And item DD, the applicant has platted 20-foot setbacks, which is an adjustment from the zoning code. Questions?
Any questions of staff? Mr. Aldridge?
Yes, sir. And regarding item M, the bicycle master plan, where is access going to be in reserve C and D? on the east side?
Could you go to the next screen? Please. Got the items. I reserve C. Yeah, I'm not quite for sure, and you have to forgive me. This was one that Neil had started, and so I'm kind of unfamiliar with it, so it's in that overlap. But yeah, reserve C would be right there for the bike path.
Well, I know where the reserves are at, but what I'm referring to is how there gonna be access for the pedestrian and bicycle, and then how's there gonna be an egress? Where's it going? Or are you just looking at having pedestrian and bike paths?
It could
that are
go-
just going nowhere.
It can, and I'm sorry, I don't have the bike path plan up, but it can go anywhere within those reserves and then connect to the overall bike path plan, master plan. So it will run through those reserves and then connect out to where the master bike path. And Scott may be able to
Scott.
clarify some things for
You
that.
got, sure. What I could suggest, Greg, is might defer to the applicant or the agent on that one and
Oh, okay,
see if they have any insights.
okay.
Okay, and then I guess since it's staff made notice of that,
Mm.
shouldn't it on the plat at least be noted somewhere? So we wouldn't have to ask these questions.
It would be, it's noted in the platters text that reserve C and D shall provide a shared access, shared use path. That's one of the uses listed in the reserves. So it could go anywhere in that reserve.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions of staff? Any comments from the advisory board members? Hearing none, applicant or agent? Make it noted that Mr. Blick has arrived.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chris Bohm from Garver, 1995 Midfield, applicant for the agent, or agent for the applicant. Sorry, got it wrong. Mr. Aldridge, I'll go to your point first. Those two reserves have plat reserve language that allows a bike path through them. The North Reserve, which is C, abuts Pawnee, and there's a new sidewalk on Pawnee from the arterial street improvements that were completed a couple of years ago. So there could be a connection made there and then head south. That Reserve C next to the little cul-de-sac is open space, and it's going to be a drainage swale. There's a couple of pipes there under Pawnee that drain the road. We're leaving that open for just kind of a natural open channel, let's call it swale. And so we can put a walk in there wherever it would be required. Similarly, they'll have to cross Carson Street, and then Reserve D is a long, narrow pond will be substantially in that reserve, but there'd be space on really either side, on the back side of the pond, or which would be the east side or the west side of the pond for a bike path.
Regarding Reserve D then, if you did that, would it wind up coming out at possibly Crosswoods Court?
It's just it would come out at the south and just dead end at the south end of the plat.
Okay.
At that south cul-de-sac. So can I click to the next one here? I don't know how to arrow down on this.
Chris, you'll have to, speaking to the microphone and the folks in the back.
Oh, could you go to the next slide if it's the south part of the plat? Okay, yeah, thank you. See Crosswind Court, it's going to end there somewhere, and we didn't make a provision that it would go any further south. So presumably when the ground to the east is developed, you'd make room for a path that would move over to the east property at that point and head further south. I don't know where the plan for the bike path is to go ultimately, but this would be the limits of the city of Wichita at this point.
Okay, thanks, sir.
A couple of things on the comments I wanted to make note of. We've worked with Public Works. We've got a 20-inch water line coming down Webb Road as part of the improvements. We're using the Water Main Extension Fund to do that. Reserve O, which is way down at the southeast corner of this plat, is reserved for a lift station. And we're using the city funding for the advancement of sewer mains for that lift station. We've been coordinating that with Sean Melius and his staff. Mr. Schultz has been in on those conversations as well. So all that's well underway. Traffic engineering had mentioned the left turn lanes for southbound Webb Road into the two entrances, one at Creed. So that's the northerly street, kind of the major street that comes in off Webb, and then at Crosswind at the south. And we're in agreement with that. We just don't want to have a petition that would do any additional work for any of the entrances on the west side of the road. So Town Park 10th is over there. I don't know what requirements Town Park 10th had for right turn lanes, southbound right turn lanes into their addition. I just want to be of record that we'll do our part, but if there's other improvements to be done, we need to work together to make one project out of it. So that's that comment. On the two, could I go up one sheet, please, on the screen for the northerly part of the plat? Thank you. The comment was made about Airman Circle and Flightline Circle for the fire access roads. When we did the preliminary plat, we made the cul-de-sac heads larger. We made 53-foot cul-de-sac heads there specifically for fire for turnaround. So I'd like to suggest that solves the problem for fire, that we don't have other emergency access roads on or between those two cul-de-sacs. So that was something we addressed earlier in the preliminary plat. So I would ask for that. And then I'll circle back around again on those two entrances to the east. That was an issue at the preliminary plat. And I just want to talk about that a little bit. So we've got one road, Carson. You can see it up there on the upper right. It bends into the property to the east as a roadway. Similarly, we've got that south cul-de-sac. And if you'd go down one page again, please, to the bottom half of the plat. Crosswind Court. So that one we showed coming out to the east line of this subdivision. So we know that the subdivision requirements say we need at least one entrance to the adjacent property. So we're good with that. And we actually thought about it before the preliminary plat that Crosswind Court down there wouldn't even touch. It would be back shorter, and our lots in that reserve for the lift station would just be unattaching. But we purposely did that with a reserve to make an emergency access to the south. But the concern there is if it's a completely open public road, when the acreage to the east gets developed, that's just a straight line to Webb Road. And I know we're trying to connect things, and I get that, but we're connecting at the north. And we are looking at remoteness for the fire department. If you think about coming in at that north road, way up north, I mean, you can go south all the way down on South Webb Road. You've got 3 other access points that connect to arterials through that north entrance. So what I'm suggesting is that we make the north connection east 100% full street, just straight on, and then keep the reserve on Crosswind Court to the south with a gate that can be locked. And at such time that property develops, or maybe even this developer buys it, I don't know, that can be worked out at that time. But it gives the opportunity to keep a controlled access point there. I don't think we're going to suffer from a safety standpoint at all. But I think when you have a corridor built for traffic, and it could go both ways, it's going to be something that comes up someday, probably 10 or 15 years from now, when that property to the east is platted, and they may not even want to connect to it. You've seen that time after time where they just don't want to connect. So I would ask that the north road going east be a full right of way. And the south one is allowed to have the reserve with a gate per fire access code. And that's it. We're in agreement with the rest of the comments. So I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Aldridge.
Chris, were you referring on as far as the north access, were you referring to Carson Street? Or,
Could you go up one again, please, on the screen? Yes, Carson Street. Just make it full right away and abut the adjacent property. Correct. The one at the south to leave a reserve for the right to put a gate in for a fire access connection on the cul-de-sac at the far southeast corner.
okay, because I know that subdivision, we had Carson as a contingent dedication, but you're fine with opening it up.
If I can get the one to the south, yes. With a reserve and a gate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I guess I'd like to ask staff if they're in agreement with what the comments that have been made.
This is Daniel Schramm with Sedgwick County Public Works. Regarding the entrances to the east, that was something that we requested at the preliminary plat stage because we wanted to have access to that unplatted parcel to the east. And the requirements are access to each unplatted parcel. So I believe just the one full access like Chris is proposing meets those requirements.
Thank you. Any other questions of the agent? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else present in the chambers that would like to speak on this item? Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we approve the plat along with the request to have Carson Street be the full access to the east. Crosswind would have the zone, or would be installed with a gate and a lock for access to the east. And with regards to the construction, possible construction on the west side of Webb Road, I would encourage the developer, the consulting engineers and the city to work through that entrance and egress to the plat on both sides of Webb Road.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Green, second by Ms. Fox.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I know, does that include the waivers that were required for the?
I'm sorry, yes, it does include the waivers as they are stated in the agenda packet.
Ms. Fox?
Second. Agrees, includes the waivers.
Okay, now we got a motion by Mr. Green, second by Ms. Fox. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Passes 7-0. The next item is item number 3, subdivision 2023-00060. Preliminary plat of Luber's Estates.
Morning, Greg Sharon, planning staff here to present the preliminary plat for Lubbers Estates. This is a 3-lot residential subdivision in the county and designated as rural growth area by the Community Investment Plan. Next screen. And then the next screen. Item A, MABCD requires tests to find out for on-site sewage and water wells. Soils work needs to be provided to MABCD. Item B, county stormwater management has approved. I got a comment that they have approved the drainage plan. Item D, access controls and one opening for existing drive is shown along 343 Street West, and complete access with one opening for existing drive and one opening for proposed access easement are shown along West 15th Street South. Public Works approves of the access controls along West 15th, but recommends moving access on 343rd Street West at least 350 feet north of the intersection. County Public Works approves of the right-of-way dedication along 343rd Street West and West 15th Street South. And item A, standard fire department, Sedgwick County Service Drive code would be needed to comply with. And item X, Evergy will not need to request any additional easements at this time. Questions, comments?
Any questions of staff?
I-
Mr. Green?
I realize that this property is in Zone X. But I also realize and see that you are wanting to have the floodway reserve easement to be labeled as floodway reserve. My question is, will there be any need for a minimum pad elevation for lot 3? Since that's the only one that hasn't been built on, at least it appears that way.
Yeah, typically any lot within subdivision would require a minimum pad elevation, and that would be shown on the final plat.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any advisory board members got any comments on this case? Seeing none, hearing none. Applicant or agent?
Good morning. My name is Will Clevenger with Garver here today on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Green, to answer your question, yes, there will be a minimum pad elevation need to be established for lot 3. Lot 2 and lot 3 are currently not built upon. Our applicant wishes to have those lots for his children to build upon next to his house. One thing I wanted to ask about and bring to attention was the entrance onto 343rd Street West, right over here. That is an existing entrance that was there when our client purchased the property, which was about 10 years ago. And is there another picture on a next slide after this one? Yes, thank you. This is a picture showing this entrance over here. And as you can see, since he's purchased the property, there's been really nice pipe fence that's been welded together and a very nice gate. And he would like to continue to use that gate as it's there. This is kind of a low traffic street right here. And there's not going to be a significant amount of traffic with just this one entrance. And we would ask that under your consideration to leave this entrance right where it's at so he can continue to use it just for this one residential lot. And we're in agreement with all the other staff comments, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Mr. Aldridge?
Yes, sir. Additional to the existing drive or entrance that's there now, are there any plans that you have to add another one further north or just retain this one?
We would ask just for this one entrance and no others, so it'd just be for servicing one future house.
Okay, thank you, sir.
This is Daniel Schramm with Sedgwick County Public Works. Yeah, certainly we'd want that limited to the one drive as you have it shown on your plat. We would like the drive move further north, but it is an established drive with fencing. And that I assume that the applicant knows that the drive would need to be pretty lengthy traveling through that narrow throat there. It's not next to the buildable area on the lot, but
Right, here within this non-floodway reserve area.
so given the location of this project, it is extreme western Sedgwick County and that it is still limited to the one opening. I think that's okay, but we definitely would prefer it to be moved north if this was not already established.
You got a question?
Mr. Green?
And I assume then that the design and construction of that road up to the house or the drive up to the house would have to meet the Sedgwick County Fire Department's approval with regards to the construction of that.
Yeah, the fire district does have the service drive code, which I think you're pretty well aware of. And so it would need to be an all-weather surface and all that. I would add that the service drive code does require that it is above the 100-year floodplain. I think you might be okay in this because you do have that narrow strip there, but you won't be able to get too far out of that.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else here in the chamber wishing to speak on this item? Anybody else? Seeing that, I'll bring it back to commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve based on staff recommendations and also the agent's comments and excluding the request to move the entrance that's been there for over 10 years. The additional 350 foot, just leave it the way it is.
Second. I know what you're talking about.
Motion by Mr. Aldridge, second by Mr. Green. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? 7-0. Even though we've already voted on the case, I'd like to ask the county, is it 343, 343, is that in the floodway elevation wise, or is it out of the 100-year?
I believe that property is in Zone X, isn't it?
I'm
And
hearing
don't-
Zone X, but I'm pulling up the map.
The only reason I'm asking is I had a situation here a while back. Same kind of thing. They wanted a service road, which was over a quarter mile above the 100-year. Well, the road getting to the drive was in the flood, so you couldn't get there anyway. So they finally waived that. That's why I'm just curious.
If I could add a comment to that, the service drive code requires that if any part of the structure is 200 feet or more from the driving surface of the road. So if you put a house up in that corner, that northwest corner, as long as it's not 200 feet from the edge of 343rd, they can fight it from there. The actual drive would not have to meet that code.
Thank you. The next item, subdivision case 2023-00061, West Valley Edition.
Morning, Greg Sharon, planning staff, here to present the West Valley Edition. This is a 5-lot residential subdivision in the county, but it's designated as small city urban growth, and it's located within the Valley Center urban area of influence. Next screen. And then next screen. And item A, MABCD, sewer and water is not available, so tests will need to be done for on-site sewage and water wells. Soils tests will need to be done. Item B, sewage lagoons are proposed. However, lot 2 consists of less than the required 5 acres. But MABCD allows 3 acres, so a waiver would be needed to reduce that requirement of 5 acres for the sewage lagoon. Item C, I've got word that Stormwater Management has approved the drainage plan. Item D, there were several comments from Public Works. And the last comment from Public Works was they recommended that this be reviewed as a sketch plat. However, the applicant has been working with Public Works to get a plan that will be approved as a one-step. And I think that they've addressed all of are in the process of addressing all of County Public Works comments. So this can be reviewed as a one-step instead of a sketch plat. And Public Works can further clarify that if need be. Additional comments from Public Works that will be added on the final staff report is that the Public Works recommends the use of joint access openings on lots 2 and 3 on 55th Street West and lots 4 and 5 on 85th Street North. Furthermore, access to lot 1 should manage to maximize the separation from the intersection. And the platter's text will need to state access controls to be dedicated on the face of the plat. Item F, County Fire Department standard comment regarding service drives. And item V, Evergy will need to request additional easement. And that markup has been provided to the applicant. And before you, you can see the updated plat that has addressed many of County Public Works concerns. So if there's any questions or comments.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yes, sir. The staff report shows that this is in the Valley Center area of influence. Would Valley Center's planning department and city council be required to hear this case also?
Scott will be able to answer that.
Sure. In terms of if a property is in a zoning area of influence, then there's a formal process and it's part of the zoning code that our planning department notifies their planning commission, and their planning commission has the opportunity to elect to hear it. So they're not required to, but they have the opportunity.
And if that does occur, let's say if this body makes a recommendation, can they go a different direction, and then what would happen then?
Yes, they can. So their recommendation can be to recommend approval. They can recommend denial or something in between with changes. If their recommendation is for denial, then it requires a supermajority of the Board of County Commissioners in order to be able to approve the zone change for the property.
Okay, thank you. And also regarding item H, just a little housekeeping. Ryan, it should be Ryan Beatty and not Ryan Bodie.
Yep, I caught that, and it will be corrected in the final staff report.
Scott.
Yeah, just a further clarification that the process of a zoning area of influence is solely for zoning cases. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware that that process is in place only for zoning cases.
Anything else, Mr. Aldridge?
No.
Any other, Mr. Green?
Yeah, will there need to be a waiver for lot 3 on the depth to width ratio?
It's 2.5.
It appears as though, well, if you use the south line, it's obviously greater. If you use the north line, it's less, but if you split the difference between the two, it appears as though
Right. Well, the way the ordinance defines lot width is that it's taken from the setback line, I believe. So you would subtract, I forgot what setbacks here, what, 20 20-foot front, is that correct?
Greg, I'm
if
not
I
sure,
could-
but what I would suggest is that if it gets
can-
approved with the waiver, I
Yeah.
don't see that there's any harm.
Right.
If there's any question about it, then I suppose that my default response would be to approve it with the waiver. That way they've got the flexibility.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's one of those iffy areas, but yeah, we can go ahead and.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you. Any comments from the advisory board members? Seeing none, applicant or agent?
Kirk Miller, K.E. Miller Engineering, 117 East Louis. I'm the agent. I guess on item B, we would like to request the waiver for the lagoons. We'd like to request a waiver for the depth to width ratio. Because I think there are a couple other lots that may have the same problem too, looking at it. So if we could just get a blanket waiver on that, we'd be happy. Daniel, you good with the right-of-way dedications?
Yeah, it's Nick.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, did my comments yesterday, did they make it into the final report regarding right of way and access controls?
Not this report, but.
Okay.
Final, that report they did. They will.
Gotcha. All right. Just to give a little bit of background, we got the revised plat yesterday, so we have reviewed it. And we are in agreement with the right-of-way dedications that is shown on the revised plat. And then we made comments about access controls for lots 2, 3, 4, and 5, having joint access openings, which I think was covered, and then access for lot 1.
Okay. On the access controls, we have 5 pretty good sized lots. We would like to have each have its own access. I realize that these are arterial streets that are, right now they're just 2-lane and have been for a long time. When you have joint access controls, like between lots 4 and 5 and lots 2 and 3, then you have the issue of, you know, who's going to maintain it. You know, some guy drives a truck, the other guy just drives a car and it messes it up. And you have the maintenance issues and everything else. And being these size lots, I don't see a reason we couldn't. I mean, if they were, you know, 100-foot wide lots or something, you know, the quarter-acre lots or whatever, that's one thing. But, you know, your smallest one here is 4.5 acres. And in a situation, you know, if he were to just start selling off tracts of land, if he sold off tract 3, somebody came in and platted 3, they would have an access. If he sold off what is lot 2 as just a tract of land, and then they have to plat it, they would have an access. So you could come in and plat each one of these individually, and each one would have their own point of access. So it just, I mean, you'd spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of your time reviewing it, 5 individual plats if you went that route. But we'd request just having 5 individual accesses to these roads instead of shared accesses between 2 large lots. Have a question for the planning director. This plat then will not go to Valley Center, right? Since it's a plat.
Getting back to the area of influence,
Mhm.
that is correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure we didn't have to deal with that.
Now, when you bring it if you bring it forward for a zoning case, of course, it's different.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So we're good. Otherwise, I think we're fine with staff comments. If anybody has any questions.
Mr. Green?
Can the county public works address the access to the various lots, please?
Yeah, so Sedgwick County and KDOT and Wichita all have access management policies. Our policy in Sedgwick County is 660 foot between full access movements. If we go with a right in, right out, that's half the distance. So we have lot frontages of about 300 to 400 feet on this one. And so it's not possible to get full turning movements that comply with our access management policy. I'd also point out that there is a drive just on the south border of this development with KWH Investment. That plat was heard by this board a few months ago. And on that plat, it was a very similarly situated plat, and we had a number of joint access easements between lots. So this would be kind of matching what we did to that south development. So by reducing the number of entrances along the road, it's been shown that you reduce crashes when that's done systematically. You know, I'm not saying that one driveway is going to cause a crash, but systematically, if we implement our access management policy, it's showing that we have safer roads with less variances in speed. And KDOT does recommend that we follow our access management policy as well.
Would that be the case when you have multiple driveways, but you have a subdivision, so you have a lot more cars versus a single living house that you might only have 2 cars that are leaving in the morning and coming back in the afternoon?
Yeah, so in larger subdivisions, we certainly do try to have a collector street coming out from that subdivision. That limits the number of access points along that road. Single residences or joint access openings, you know, with obviously have less volume coming off of those. That also has impacts just for the drivers know what's to be expected. They're not expecting for cars to be coming out any point along the roadway. And then it also helps with decision making with driveways across the street from you. If you have drives that are slightly offset and kind of regular and you're making a left, are you looking across at your neighbor, who gets to go? So kind of organizing those driveways certainly helps.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, not. Thank you. Is there anyone else present in the commission wants to speak on this item? Anyone else? Seeing that, I'll bring it back to commission with pleasure of the board.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve with the waivers for the depth and the width ratio. Also the lagoon, and also the right of way dedication. And to eliminate the shared access. I just think it's important that when you're looking at develop, plus that this is an accounting, so and I'm looking at when you go to develop, these are 8, 9 acres. I know you got 3 sections that are 5 or right at 5. Those are still pretty good size acreage, and I understand that some of these are only 335-foot width on that. But when you go to market, when you go to build, and believe me, I understand when you talk about joint access and who's going to maintain it, and that's a bit of a pain, and it could be expensive.
Second.
You got a motion by Mr. Aldridge, second by Mr. Blick. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? That's a 7-0. Do we have anything else to come in front of us today? If not, we're adjourned.